The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1, in the name of Chris Bishop.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Question to the Minister of Finance. How will Budget 2015 progress the Government's commitment to manage the Government's finances while delivering better public services?
Mr Speaker.
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, we will follow the same approach of stable and predictable management of the Government's finances with the objective of better public services for New Zealanders. We know that this is working because there are today 42,000 fewer children living in benefit-dependent households than 3 years ago, and 194,000 new jobs compared with 4 years ago. Mr Speaker, core Crown expenditure will be around $4 billion lower than we thought it would be back in 2011 this year. These changes are making a real difference to people's lives.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. How will Budget 2015 help New Zealanders and their families?
Honourable
Mr.
Bill
Speaker.
English.
Well, the member will have to wait till Budget Day to see the whole plan.
Order.
But we've already made some announcements that will benefit New Zealand families. ACC levy cuts will bring about $500 million worth of savings to New Zealanders. We've announced $98 million for more timely elective surgery and improved orthopaedic treatment. Also $32 million to strengthen compliance with minimum employment standards. And we're putting $33 million towards more immigration officers because New Zealand is such a success story. We're getting more visitors, migrants and tourists and need more capacity at the border.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What other Budget 2015 decisions have been announced?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, we're providing inland revenue with an additional $29 million for greater property tax compliance. We already tax the gain that people make when they sell a property that they bought with the intention of reselling it, and that's fair. We're sharpening up those rules to make it easier for IRD to enforce them and help ensure people understand their liabilities. So everyone will have to provide their IRD number on every property they buy other than their main home, and everyone will know there will be a 2-year bright line test, meaning that gains from property sold within 2 years of purchase will be taxed, except if it's the main place of residence or inherited or part of a matrimonial settlement.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Grant Robertson.
Does he recall saying in the 2014 budget speech, quote, "There will be a small surplus next year and increasing surpluses forecast over time"? And now, having broken that promise, will he be using exactly the same sentence in this year's budget speech?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I do remember making that statement as part of the 2014 budget, and it indicated significant progress from an $18 billion deficit to what will turn out to be a $500 or $600 million deficit. It falls short of the surplus that was budgeted by a bit, and that means we'll achieve surplus next year.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. What particular measures in Budget 2015 apply to property investors who may be based overseas?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, as well as having to supply a New Zealand IRD number, all non-resident, that is non-tax resident buyers and sellers, must also provide their tax ID number from their home country, along with a current ID such as a passport. This will enable IRD to share tax information with overseas authorities. Also, to ensure that our full anti-money laundering rules apply to non-residents, they must have a New Zealand bank account before they get a New Zealand IRD number. Finally, we'll be looking at introducing a withholding tax for non-tax residents, which, if adopted, means we'll take the tax off immediately when the property is sold and the foreign owner will have to square up with IRD later.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary. Order. 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 Supplementary question, Andrew Bailey.
Thank you. How does that increased compliance on property gains fit within the government's response to escalating Auckland house prices?
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the real issue in Auckland is that there are too few houses to meet demand. So the problem is pretty simple, but ensuring more supply is the most effective long-term tool for bringing some order to the Auckland property market. So we're working on a number of fronts. Changes in the tax regime, which may dampen demand, setting up special housing areas to free up more land, and concentrating on redeveloping extensive government land holdings in Auckland, for instance, transferring Housing New Zealand properties to the Tamaki Redevelopment Company.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Supplementary question, Andrew Bailey.
How do those decisions sit within the government's commitment to control its spending?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr. Speaker, these commitments are all being financed by a relatively low level of new government initiatives. So, for instance, the total annual cost of new initiatives in this government's last 6 budgets is around $3 billion. The last 6 budgets of the previous government had $20 billion of new initiatives, and at the end of that time, even supporters of theirs, such as the Salvation Army, were led to conclude that despite all the spending, there were no better outcomes for New Zealand communities. With less new spending, we're getting better outcomes.
Question number 2,